all. My name is Siddha Raj Bhatta, and this is my web page, siddhabhatta.com. Today I am going to talk about the product method of calculating gross domestic product in an economy. The gross domestic product, which is the sum total of the value of goods and services produced within the economy in a given period of time, can be measured by using three approaches. Among them, one of the most widely used approach is the production approach. I will explain how GDP is calculated by using this approach in the context of Nepal. So, according to the production approach, the gross domestic product of an economy is simply the total value of final goods and services produced. It can be measured by using the value added approach. So GDP equals the gross value added in the economy. The gross value added is calculated as the difference between the gross output produced and the intermediate consumption used in the production processes. So here is an example from Nepal. In case of Nepal, to calculate the gross domestic product, the economic activities are categorized under 15 headings, starting from agriculture and forestry to other community, social and personal service activities. So these are the standard industrial classification groups. So the first table shows the gross output of these 15 subsectors. So these are in million of Nepalese rupees. So the gross output of agriculture and forestry sector in the year 14-15 is 822 billion rupees. The gross output of fishing sector in that year is 10 billion rupees. So the GDP estimating agency first estimates the gross output of all these 15 subsectors. Next comes the estimation of intermediate consumption. Intermediate consumption is nothing but the value of raw materials that are used up in the production process. So this figure 206 billion Nepalese rupees shows the value of materials used in the production of agricultural and forestry production. So just like this subsector, the intermediate consumption for all other 14 subsectors are estimated. So this is the total value of intermediate consumption, which is 1127 billion Nepalese rupees. So the first table gives us the gross value of output of all the 15 subsectors, and the second table gives us the gross value of intermediate consumption. So now in this table we calculate the gross value added of each of the 15 subsectors. For example, this figure shows the gross value added of agriculture and forestry sector in the year 2014-15. So this is calculated simply by subtracting the intermediate consumption, which is 206 billion, from the gross output, which is 820 billion. So the gross value added of agriculture and forestry sector appears to be 616 billion. Now we use the same approach for all the subsectors, all the 15 subsectors, and the gross value added is found. So now we sum up the gross value added. This gives us the gross value added of the whole economy. Here comes the most trickiest part. Here comes the trickiest part, which is the difference between gross domestic product and the gross value added. So there are discrepancies between the gross value added and the gross domestic product in two respects. The first one is the financial intermediate services indirectly measured, and the second one is the taxes and subsidies. So the financial intermediation services indirectly measures, this is the valuation of the services that is rendered by the financial institutions in all of the 15 subsectors. So this type of financial intermediation is taken as an intermediate consumption and should be subtracted from each of the 15 subsectors. But in case of Nepal, the financial intermediation services has not been calculated separately for the 15 subsectors. Rather, a sum total estimate of financial intermediation services is calculated and subtracted from the gross value added. So since this is taken as an intermediate consumption, this should be subtracted from the GBA first. So this figure is simply the difference between total GBA and the financial intermediation services. So we apply this formula for all the 3 years, and this figure is called the gross domestic product at basic prices. So in Nepal, GDP at basic prices is found only after the subtraction of financial intermediation services indirectly measured from the GBA. So GDP at basic prices is always smaller than the GBA. So now GDP at product prices do not include the taxes on goods and services. So it is not till now expressed at market prices or producers' prices. So now we adjust the GDP basic prices by including taxes on products and by removing the subsidies given on those products, if any. So this is the value. This is the value. 231 billion is the value of taxes less subsidies, and we add this value to GDP at basic prices, and our GDP at producer prices comes, which is 2130 billion rupees. So we apply the same formula for the 3 years, and we come up with the GDP at producer prices. So the most important thing is that GDP and GBA are different in case of Nepal, because of two adjustments. The first one is financial intermediate services, and the second one is the indirect taxes and subsidies. Not only in Nepal, this discrepancy is found in most of the countries. So next we move to the sectoral contribution in GDP. So how much is contributed from agriculture, how much is contributed by industry, and how much is contributed by services. To do this, we add the value added by the agriculture sector, industrial sector, and services sector. So the value added by agriculture sector is simply the sum of value added of these two subsectors, agriculture and forestry and fishing. So this sum comes out to be 625 billion. The value added by industrial sector is the sum of four subsectors, which is mining and quarrying, manufacturing, electricity, gas and water, and construction. Similarly, the value added by services sector is the sum of all the remaining subsectors in case of Nepal, that is wholesale and retail trade, hotels and restaurant, transport, storage and communication, financial intermediation, real estate renting and business activities, public administration and defense, education, health and social work, and other community social and personal service activities. So now we apply this formula for all 3 years, which gives us the value added by these broad economic sectors. So now to calculate the sectoral contribution, we divide this value added by the gross value added, and we come up with the sectoral contribution. For example, in the year 2014-15, agriculture sector contributes 31.7% of GDP, industrial sector contributes 14.8%, and the services sector contributes 53.4% of GBA, or we simply say that these are the sectoral contribution in GDP. So there is another kind of classification too, which is more often used, the sectoral contribution by primary, secondary, and tertiary sector. So the only difference is that in primary sector there is another extra sector included besides agriculture, that is mining and quarrying. So the value added by primary sector is the sum of agriculture and forestry, fishing, and mining and quarrying. So in secondary sector, the three subsectors of the industrial sectors are included. Those are manufacturing, electricity, gas and water, and construction. And the whole service sector is included in tertiary sector. So we apply this formula for all the 3 years, and now we divide the value added by the gross value added of the economy, and we come up with the sectoral contribution of primary, secondary, and tertiary sectors. For example, the contribution of primary sector in 2017 GBA is 30%, the contribution of secondary sector is 14%, and the contribution of tertiary sector is 56%. So we now next move how the gross national income is calculated. So gross national income is simply the sum of gross domestic product and net factor income from abroad. So this is the net factor income estimates from abroad, and we add we add this net factor income to the gross domestic product at producer price, which gives us an estimate of gross national income, and we can use this formula for all the 3 years. So now next we move to gross national disposable income, which is simply the difference between gross national income and the net transfer. So in case of Nepal, the net transfers are quite large due to foreign remittances and pension. So the net transfer is added to gross national income, which gives us the gross national disposable income. So as I said, the remittance income in the economy, which is around 600 to 700 billion in the recent years, this has made the size of current transfer very large in Nepal. So as such, the gross national disposable income is much larger than the gross national income. So when we add the net current transfer to gross national income, it gives us gross national disposable income. So gross national income in 1415 is 2164 billion, whereas the gross national disposable income is 2874 billion rupees, and we can use this formula for all the 3 years. So next we move how the domestic savings and national savings in an economy are calculated. To calculate the domestic savings and national saving, we need an estimate of the final consumption expenditure of the economy. The final consumption expenditure, it includes the consumption expenditure by households and government. So these are the estimates of final consumption expenditure. The domestic saving is simply calculated as the difference between gross domestic product and the final consumption expenditure, so which is 196 billion. So we can use this formula for all the 3 years. Now next comes the gross national saving. The gross national saving is the difference between gross national disposable income and final consumption expenditure, which is 940 billion rupees. So we can use this formula for all the 3 years. So the gross national saving is quite higher than the gross domestic saving, just because of the large current transfer in case of Nepal, due to remittances and pensions from abroad. So we can also calculate the final consumption expenditure GDP ratio, domestic saving GDP ratio, and a national saving GDP ratio. So this is simply the consumption expenditure divided by GDP, domestic savings divided by GDP in 100, and national saving divided by GDP into 100. And we can use this formula for all the 3 years. So we can see that the consumption ratio of Nepal is very high. It's around 90% on average over the years, whereas the domestic saving is quite low, which is around 7 to 10% in the recent years, and the national saving ratio is higher than 40% due to the remittance inflow. So we next move to per capita income, or per capita GDP, per capita GNI, and per capita GNDI are calculated in Nepal. So the per capita, to calculate per capita income, we need an estimate of the total population, which is given here: 27.9 million, 28.3 million, and 28.7 million. So to calculate the per capita GDP, we divide the value of GDP by population. So this is the value of GDP and this is the value of population. On division we get 76,201 rupees. This value is not in million, so this is 76,201. So we can use this formula for all the years. To calculate per capita GNI, we divide the value of GNI, which is 2164 billion, by 27.9 million. This gives us the value of GNI, per capita GNI, as 77,426 Nepalese rupees. So we can similarly calculate the per capita GNI by dividing gross national disposable income by population. So finally, to calculate the per capita values in US dollars, we have to simply divide the per capita income in Nepalese rupees by the exchange rate of US dollar. So this 7600 is simply obtained by dividing the per capita GDP of Nepal in Nepalese rupees by the exchange rate of US dollar with Nepalese rupees, which is 99.49 for the year 1415. So by using this formula for all the years, we get the per capita GDP in US dollar. So in this way we can calculate the per capita GNI in US dollar and per capita GNDI in US dollar. So for instance, this per capita GNI in US dollar is obtained by dividing per capita GNI in Nepalese rupees for the year 1617, which is 91,713, by the exchange rate 106.1 for that year. So this is obtained by this divided by this, which is 864 US dollar. Thank you for watching this video, and for watch videos on economic issues, economic policy making, and others. Don't forget to subscribe my YouTube channel. Thank you very much.